Respected Dean, Birla School of Commerce, Professor Dr. Samson Morana, Dr. Manas Panda, Managing Consultant, Banking and Financial Services, Wipro US, Mr. Manish Shah, Executive Vice President, Digital Channels, Kotak Mahindra Bank Limited, Mr. Mahindra Dohare, General Manager, Digital Banking Division, Punjab National Bank, Dr. S.P. Mohanty, Conclave Advisor and General Manager, RBI, my faculty colleagues and dear participants. A very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for joining us back for this second panel discussion of the BGU Bankers Conclave 2021, being organized on the topic Digitalization and Innovation in Banking, the synergy between technology and customer service. And this is being organized by Birla School of Commerce, Birla Global University. The banking landscape is changing quickly, and a new wave of technology is revolutionizing the way customers interact with their finances. And from social to mobile capabilities, banks are all the time reconsidering their ways of doing business. And to discuss more about these aspects of mobile banking innovations, AI powered digital channels, and digital banking products and services, we have such eminent panelists with us today. Once again, welcome all of you to the second panel discussion of BGU Bankers Conclave. For our new participants and resource persons who have joined recently, I take this opportunity to quickly introduce our conclave chairperson and Dean, Birla School of Commerce, Professor Dr. Samson Morana. Sir has 37 years of postgraduate teaching experience in the field of commerce and has his FTP in management from the prestigious IIM Ahmedabad. Sir retired from Utkal University as Professor Head and Dean of Commerce and Chairman, PG Council. Professor Marana was also a member of the Fifth State Finance Commission, Government of Odisha, and is an independent director of several PSUs. So, welcome to the second panel discussion, and I would request you to kindly initiate the discussion.
Thank you, Mrs. Lupavdar Naik. Greetings and good afternoon to our resource persons, Dr. Manas Panda from USA, Srijukta Manish Shah, Senior Vice President, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Srijukta Mahindra Dohere, General Manager, Punjab National Bank, my colleagues from the Birla School of Commerce, and participants. It has been a great day for all of us because we have been discussing the various aspects of emerging technology and banking since the morning 9:30. It was a scintillating session in the inaugural when Mr. H.K. Jena, the CMD of Clearing Corporation of India, talked about some qualitative aspects of the uh, banking technology and its impact on our day-to-day life. And Mr. Krishna Sastri Pendial talk about the practicalities of the cyber security. And also we had four distinguished panelists in the first technical session. There was a lot of questions from the participant. Of course, due to shortage of time, we could not entertain all the questions. Sir, I welcome all the three of you to this particular second panel discussion. This is the Bankers Conclave, which has been organized by the first time by the Birla School of Commerce. We have two specific objectives. We want to develop close linkage with the commercial banks because we have to learn from them about the recent development which are taking place. Our students, our research scholars who are doing research, they would like to learn what are the recent development and how does it impact the customers of the banks. We also like many bankers have joined also, and also there are persons from the entrepreneurs, small business consultants who have also joined, and they are also interested that they should know from the top level bankers what are the recent development and how does it impact the commercial banking, because we know that the entire commercial banking has taken a turnaround of 360-degree during the last 2 decades. The banking scenario is not same that we had seen 20 years back, and every day some changes are taking place, And unless we are in touch with the technology, it is important for the bank employees, it is important for the students and the researchers. So we are interested, and that's the reason why we have organized this bankers conclave. And there has been a lot of value addition from the speeches that were delivered by our resource persons, and we are eagerly waiting to listen from you. We have already received few questions from the participants, and we hope that the participants, more and more number, will join this particular webinar, because we had a very difficult time when it was announced yesterday that there will be a shutdown, weekly shutdown. All of a sudden there was a chaos, but in spite of that, large number of participants have joined. I thank all of them. I hope that more and more number of them will join later on. So thank you very much. Uh, I once again greet all of you on behalf of the Birla School of Commerce of Birla Global University. Thank you. Lopamudra.
Thank you so much, sir, for initiating the discussion for the second panel and for giving us a quick recap of the morning sessions that we had today. Thank you so much, sir. We see that mobile banking in India is in its nascent stage, and there are certain prevailing issues which must be addressed for its smooth diffusion. And to deliberate on the same, we have with us today Dr. Manas Panda, Managing Consultant, Banking and Financial Services, Wipro US. Dr. Panda is a banking and financial services technology leader with deep business acumen across business processes, emerging technology landscape, and global trends. He has been working for the last 2 decades in designing and implementing technology solutions, defining digital strategies, and building perspectives that help organizations transform, meet business objectives, drive productivity, stay compliant, and enhance customer experience. Dr. Panda has a PhD from Utkal University and is an alumnus of Columbia Business School, University of Virginia, and has done several courses in University of California and Stanford University. Sir worked with Stock Holding Corporation of India Limited for 4 years and later joined Axis Bank. He held key positions in Oracle Financial Services Software Limited, Polaris Consulting and Services Limited, and Wipro Limited. Sir is also a co-member of the banking domain consulting team of Wipro US for the last 10 years, and we're extremely privileged to have Sir with us today. Welcome to the conclave, Dr. Panda. I request you to kindly deliver your address.
Thanks, Lopamudra. Thanks, Dr. Maharna, for this arranging this banking conclave. So let me share my screen on the.
Sure, sir.
Are you able to see my screen, Lopa?
Not yet, sir.
It shows disabled screen sharing.
Pandiji, can you please help?
Yes.
So we'll just activate screen sharing in a minute.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I think it's visible now. Yes.
Yeah. So thanks, Lopa. Thanks, Professor Marna. It's a privilege to be with such distinguished personalities. So before we get into this mobile banking details, I would like to give a thanks for the vote, a round of applause for the banking industry, the way they responded to this pandemic. It was pretty unprepared, and nobody has a playbook to how to handle that. So branches were shut down, and situation, the everything went into a standstill. But the way the industry responded, coming back within weeks, a lot of things, it was all restored in a few weeks or max in a month's time. So as Mark Butnick said, the things which were not even thought of a year back, these were all back into normal. So one of the data, if you see, which was done by McKinsey recently, 1 year of expected growth has been achieved in just 11 days of reality. So that is the speed in which the financial industry responded to the pandemic. And in the last 1 year, we have achieved 7 years of digital growth. And what is more important out of that is 53% of executives, they still feel that this behavior of shifting towards online transactions, that is going to continue. And this is one of the most important feature that indicates how the future is going to be. So where are we heading to? Another indicator which shows that this online and mobile industry, mobile banking will be one of the key area for the future. If you see the e-commerce business last year, it was almost tripled. So when the branches are closed, reducing importance of branches, at the same time, the e-commerce business grew. So that increased the confidence level on the digital channels. And particularly for a country like India, where the penetration is high, the potential is very high how to capitalize on those trends. There is another survey by American Banking Association and JD Power. If you look at the data, more than 50% of population is going to stay between the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic. So that is a behavior which is going to be in the future. And this behavior was anticipated, it was expected when the trend started to shift. So Indian industry is also no different than this. More than 50% population surveyed, they say this behavior is going to continue. So online and mobile banking will be the future. And this, as per RBI data, even though there's a year back, we can see the mobile transaction levels are zooming ahead. And last year's transaction was phenomenal. And 58% is expected to grow. So the growth rate for the next couple of years up to 2025 is expected to grow at 58% as per S&P Global analysis. And digital payments is expected to grow by 27%. So these are few of the indicators that show how the industry is going to behave, what is the importance of mobile industry. And that goes into the mobile payments and mobile transactions. So in future, this is going to be the place where the industry lies. So banking industry is heading towards that. And this was well identified during the pandemic phase itself. So during this, in order to adjust to the customer expectations, if you see most of the financial services industry, they've started investing in developing their mobile apps. And at AI and ML, they are the two features, two technologies, artificial intelligence. More than 57% of investment has gone to mobile app development across the globe. It's interesting to see that most across the globe, whether it is Asia Pac or it's Middle East or it's Europe, North America, everywhere, it's close to 50% of the funding has gone to develop the mobile app by the financial services industry. So where is the future? So as CEO Jane Fraser, CT said, the future of the banking industry will be an account, it will be a mobile app and a card. So branches are losing their importance and mobile is taking over that. So that leads to one interesting stuff, that how the mobile app is going to be. So the mobile app will be a feature. In future, this is going to be a super app that needs to address the convenience of customers. It needs to be relevant. When we say relevant, mobile generates lots of data. And that data can be utilized to create products that will be tailored to the individual need. So it can be personalization. So personalization to an extreme level, that's going to be the future. And as mobile grows, security is another area. So it's the morning Mr. Krishna was referring to. So cybersecurity is an area of concern that simultaneously grows with the increase of mobile transaction. A bank N26, it's a mobile bank which was established in Berlin, it's a German bank in 2013. And within a span of 8 years, it has expanded its operation into 25 countries. So that shows the phenomenal growth expected for future into mobile banking. So how the future will be? So the mobile app will act as a super app, which will be connected to the entire ecosystem. So the way current banking industry plays, bank as a platform, the same way that platform will be shifted towards mobile app. So mobile app will be a platform which will connect to payments. It will provide shopping, investing, savings, aggregators, even crypto also will be the future. So these are just few, it's an indicative diagram, but the future lies in a way that mobile app will play like a platform connecting to all other apps. And banks has an advantage the way they have the data with them. Banks are privy to the personal information, to the financial life of the customer. And that information is key to the development of the bank of the future, the way how they play around this data, how they utilize this data in order to generate products, in order to create products which are relevant to the customer, generate a personalized experience using all those digital technologies, whether it is artificial intelligence or machine learning technologies, analytics. As Krishna was telling about the IoT, IoT is something which is generating huge amount of data every minute, every second, and that data can be utilized to build products and services that provides a personal experience to the customer. The more connected, as going forward, the system will be taken care of. Most of the manual operations are automated. So that leaves an ample opportunity for the bankers in order to connect with the customer in a way that personal high-touch environment is maintained. So these are some of those few areas where the recent developments have gone into. You see, there are instant digital card, financial wellness, and COVID-19 alerts. This is an interesting area where this is an urgent need. So banks in the US, they have gone ahead with their mobile app development that sends an alert to the customer. The moment a customer logs into the mobile app, it shows an intimation about whether someone needs in a financial assistance, which ranges starting from realigning your financial requirements, or someone needs any kind of a PPP government funding platforms, the programs supported by US Fed. So any kind of financial assistance you can access to or realign, starting from individual customers to the small businesses. So this is the way, one of those way that the mobile app can be personalized to give and to stand with the customer at their need, hour of the need. Another area is marketing. Mobile generates lots of data. So the way Google Apps, Google Drive drives the mobile information using the GPS geospatial information, the Google Drive says which side of the road we are and where we want to, where is the traffic, how much is the traffic, how long will it take. The same way banks has access, and the mobile app can point out the specific information of the customer, the location. So geospatial information, the financial behavior, the financial life of the customer, using these targeted marketing promotions can be done. It's like when I'm sitting with a car dealer, want to do a transaction and to buy out a car, at the same moment you punch and marketing campaign. Instead of a generalized one, it's more personalized one. the way the customer gets a nudge, and that enhances the experience level that closes the deal. So this is how the marketing can also, this is an area where it can be further personalized. Another area is a fraud monitoring thing. So this is very important from the perspective of the penetration that mobile is having, and at the same time when businesses go out of a secure network. One of the example is when we starting in Bhubaneswar, if I want to book a Uber in Bangalore, the mobile app can tell us the exact location where the person is, and whether is it the person who is booking the transaction or it is somebody else. And it's a real-time fraud monitoring mechanism which has been implemented in the recent time to avoid this fraud detection. This provides a real-time monitoring mechanism that a lot of occasions has resulted into preventing fraud and prospective fraud area. But at the same time, this is something which needs to be educated. The customer needs to be educated. This is an area where the bankers also need to play a lot of role to educate the customer how to identify, how to detect that. And it's not that these developments are there across the globe. Indian banking industry is way ahead in this area. ICICI, Kotak, they're always ahead of the time in developing their mobile app. One-stop shopping, real-time transaction monitoring. These are some of those areas where ICICI Bank has a good hold on. They always keep on inventing new products, designing new products which appeal to the customer. Same way, regeneration of credit card and debit card PIN numbers is an area in Kotak Bank. That's a pain area always. Credit card transactions, disputes, these are always a pain area. Addressing that, that would bring convenience and simplicity to the customer. But some more indicators of how the future looks like buy now, pay later, the service which has been implemented by Amex recently. In-app financing, instant financing of large purchases. So that is an area where fintechs and credit card operations, they are getting into. So for banks, it offers another area of opportunity where they can expand using the mobile app. So how does the opportunities look like, and what are some of the challenges that we foresee? Cybersecurity is one of the major areas that we need to take care of. By Wipro's Cybersecurity Report 2020, we see the financial frauds as a top quadrant of a high impact and high likelihood area. So this is an area as mobile apps penetration increases, considering the reasonably low digital education in Indian market. So this is something which banks need to take care of with an increased level of cybersecurity threat. And skill gap is another area where we expect banks to address in. If I go back to the World Economic Forum Future of Work 2020, the 1 in 5 jobs are at the risk of getting changed as we shift from a branch operation mode to more digital, mobile, online transactions. So the nature of work in the bank will change. And that is something where there is a necessity of a skill gap that needs to be addressed by the bank. So the bankers need to be more human-centric. They need to connect with the customer in a better way in order to address their queries rather than being into more operational. So empathy, understanding the situation as the penetration increases. So those are areas where the bankers on the ground need to invest their time. This government initiative of Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile. So this has increased the mobile penetration to unbanked areas in India. It has added more than 100 million customers to the Indian banking system. But at the same time, these are low-cost transactions from one angle. At the same time, it offers a great amount of opportunity as well as threat. So these are some of those areas on a quick glance where the future looks like and where mobile banking is going to play a significant role. So I would thank Professor Mohanna Lopamudra for this opportunity, and let's take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us an extensive insight into the mobile banking scenario in India and showing us a graph of how e-commerce business has grown. Also, people have always been such laid back that they like or love things on their fingertips, and that is why it becomes easier to access things which are over mobile. And probably that is the reason why all over the world the investment in developing mobile apps has grown so forward. So thank you so much, sir. Could you please stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So we have just, we'll take a few questions. Our participant had sent some questions, so we'll take a few. So the first question is, the MFIs which have mushroomed in India have been playing a very decisive role in delivering the financial services to the most neglected informal sectors of the society. And do you think that this increasing use of mobile banking, will there be a rivalry between these mobile banking apps and microfinance institutions, or will they become partners?
See, Indian market is such a huge market. You know, the cake is so big that everyone can have their piece, and still there will be left out. If you see the rural population, as per the World Economic Forum information, there are 893 million people in rural. And one of the mega trends, so to say, that this pandemic has created, this de-urbanization. So the clusters from urbanized localities, they have again gone back. So these numbers have again gone up. So it's never going to be a competition. Rather, it will be a physical presence. It is a merge and collaboration of physical presence as well as digitalization. The segment of population which are catered by the MFIs, they were never a customer of a bank. Very limited segment of that customer base belong to the bank. And for a digital enabled bank, the cost of servicing is also high. So MFI is rather complement to the base. They added a population base to the banking segment rather than taking away from banking segment. And second thing is that particular segment of customer who are the customers of MFI, they were never digital savvy. They are rather high-touch customers who had a face-to-face transaction with their local representative. And that particular aspect cannot be replaced by the mobile banking. Even though whether it is a payment bank, you can say Airtel Money, or it is a Jio Money, or is it a ICICI or Kotak or Axis or SBI, none of them is going to replace that face-to-face high-touch relationship that the MFI's representatives share with the person on the ground, who never had a mobile before and who became a banking customer right now. Another area where this MFIs compete, it is a high cash transaction. The segment of this population who are customers of MFI, they don't have any kind of a regular flow of money. So they have an earn and spend type of a customer group. And mobile added to that. even though we say government of India is transferring those benefits to their mobile or to their other enabled account, but there is a necessity to convert that digital transaction into cash. So all this segment that MFI scatter right now, they're high cash, high transaction, and it's not a systematic group which the banking industry has catered to before. Rather, it is a need that we need to collaborate with each other, that maximum banking service can be provided. The more financial inclusion happens, the better it will be. Slowly, a segment of population will migrate from this MFI segment towards banking industry to the mainstream banking, but it's a long way to go. That's what I think.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us clarity regarding the different kinds of customer base and what kind of customer group both MFIs and mobile banking apps have. Thank you so much, sir. Moving forward, we also have with us today Mr. Manish Shah, Executive Vice President, Digital Channels, Kotak Mahindra Bank Limited. He's a part of the core team that drives Kotak Mahindra Bank's digital-first banking strategy and leads the team that manages the bank's digital channel initiatives across mobile, internet, and conversational banking. During his 8 years at Kotak, Sir has led the implementation of key digital banking initiatives related to Kotak mobile banking app, internet banking, and conversational banking, including the launch of AI-powered Kia chatbot and WhatsApp banking. Sir has over 2 decades of experience in the digital and financial services sector. Prior to joining Kotak in 2012, Mr. Shah was working with ICICI Prudential Life Insurance from 2005 to 2012, ApnaLoan.com from 2001 to 2005, and GE Plastics during 99-2000. He gave wings to his entrepreneurial ambitions when in 1999 he co-founded two personal financial management ventures, Wealthfront.com and Calciplus.com. Both enterprises were eventually merged with ApnaLoan.com. Sir is a mechanical engineer and has done his MBA from Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. So, sir, a very warm welcome to you and welcome to this BDO Bankers Conclave. I would request you to kindly deliver your address.
Thanks, Gopal, for such a warm welcome. And so I think good to hear from Mr. Panda also. I think he has covered what maybe even being a banker, I would not have covered with so much fluidity which he covered. So thanks, Mr. Panda. I also took some notes from your presentation. It helps me to also learn from professionals like you. Okay, so everybody, what I'm going to cover today is on conversational banking. How a bank is able to use AI into digital channel. Okay. Now, quickly, I think we know I'm from Kotak Bank, which is by now the second largest private banking for market cap. While in the total assets or liability base may not be the biggest one. However, when you look at our market cap, you look at our digital penetration, that shows that we are way ahead of other banks. So what digital is helping us to leapfrog to next level. I think at 10-20 years back, all banks were known by number of branches they had, number of ATMs they had, like number of feet on the street they had, which is still important. I don't think they're going to go down in the next 5 to 10 years. And still digital is helping us to leapfrog to the next level. And from the start, we've been very cautious that we need to get digital right. We want to be a bank which is digital first. However, there will be multiple channels available to customers. I don't think customers are going to stop using any specific channel. However, we want customer to have an option to use any channel they want to use. If somebody wants to be a digital only, we are striving to say how do we make a bank which can be worked digital only. The difference in bank and any other product, if you see, banking is very complicated business altogether. In fact, it's heavily regulated. We're dealing with customers' money, where trust is very important. Second is, if you're a universal bank, okay, you're almost taking care of every Indian is our banker, right? And that's one thing people want to miss is banking is not only about retail or consumers like you and me, right? A lot of banking happens for the large corporates, SMEs, rural bankers who want a loan for the tractor or agriculture, right? So technically, everybody is a banker, customer to us, right? But there, if you start to look at all type of personas of the customer, all kind of products in the market, every product life cycle, right? You are going to see at least 4 to 5,000 use cases if I have to build a comprehensive mobile app / internet banking, right? Typically, if I launch a fintech app or any cool app in the market, they'll pick up one use case, two use case max, and build on that initially. Right? Later, maybe they'll go with 5 use cases, 10 use cases. But banking is from that angle very complicated. So that's why it's much difficult as a journey to endeavor where how can I build a full-fledged digital solution for the customer. But that's what we are striving to do it. Some success we have got so far. Maybe by now we have got some 80% of our bank active customers are already digital active. We were very keen on getting the right customer experience, and that shows our iOS app. If you look at it, 4.8 rated, which is one of the highest rated app. Okay. Now, because I more focus on the conversation AI, which was given to me as a topic. What we see is what does the conversation AI helps? Is first is how can I digitally converse with the customer? Okay. And how do I hyper personalize the experience with every customer is getting on online channel? Okay, so it should become a n is equal to 1 kind of approach where every customer gets what they want to do it. And how can I nudge the customer on cross sell without spamming the customer, without trying to push a customer if he doesn't need it? Right? And that's the 3 key areas we try to drive. The background I'll try to give it, this is not something we are trying to push customers to the conversational. Okay. See, if you see, banking was always conversational, right? Earlier, say, when our parents or even we say 15, 20 years back, right? We had anything to do in banking. Banking was very overwhelming, complicated, right? Typically, we'll do either go to the branch counter, right? Or we'll call the contact center of the bank. Or if you are an HNI customer, you may have a relationship manager also. Typically, you will talk to them people, right? You'll go to the branch and say, "Madam, मेरा debit card नहीं चल रहा है, or I already have a home loan work from you. मुझे उस पर top up चाहिए आपसे 5 lakhs rupees, right?" You always converse with somebody in the bank. The banker will then talk to you, understand your need further, then finally convert into a technical language, maybe give you a form saying that, sir, आप ये form sign कर दीजिए, this is the process, this is the cost, and this is the TAT will take for closing the deal, right? So that's the way banking used to happen earlier, right? Now in digital is very different approach, right? If you see there are sciences like human computer interactions, right? The banking in a digital GUI is more become like a screen with buttons and forms and fields, right? So most of the banking had gone there. However, as I told you, a bank will typically have a 4 to 5,000 different kind of use cases, right? What we are seeing is if I'm doing something again and again, there may be a web-based page is okay. Like if I want to do a everyday fund transfer or a scan and pay or say request a checkbook, I can go to app and do it. Where I'm stuck, wherever I'm say have an issue, query, complaint, confusion, right? I do get stuck in digital channel. Second is sometimes, as I told you, because of so many use cases, there's a long tail of use cases. I may do a very odd thing on a product. At that time, you used to see customers will find it very difficult to do it online. And they don't know where to find that feature in the app, or it may not be available. They have to still go to contact center or a branch and get it done. We try to say, how can we build a chatbot in our channels, which complements the digital channels, which makes a whole digital experience more integrated. Like as I told you, you did a fund transfer, fine. Now you have a query, you have a problem, you have a complaint. That's where our Kia chatbot is start to come in. Second and third part, I already told you that with chatbot and conversation approach, we have to say how can I personalize it as much as possible for the customer. I'll tell you slowly, the AI has been a journey. Now, one thing is, I don't think we or anybody in the world has totally cracked it. The NLP-based AI is something which is evolving still. And I think there's a long journey where I can say it is foolproof. Today, we all have seen, right? We may use Siri or Alexa or Google Assistant, right? However, you will say it's not going to work every time. It fails sometimes. It's not very easy for a machine to understand what you're saying, right? It is always a basis of self-learning. That's why it becomes a long-term investment where we need to take the path. And I'll show you a couple of smart tweaks to do with it. While you are learning, customer is not going to appreciate you are learning on his or her behalf, right? You need to build a ways where we still give customers what they need, but also learn yourself. So our journey, as I told you, has been some with a very narrow intelligence, where you pick up one thing and just give customer that idea. It's like instead of a recharge or a request checkbook on a GUI page, you can use chatbot to do it, step by step. Then we start to see customers normally when they call contact center, they ask 2 or 3 things one together. How can I build that extra intelligence where I talk to customer like an agent will do? So next day customer feels more comfortable to Kia chatbot instead of going to a contact center. The long journey, we want to see, can my chatbot also offer a advisory or expert advice to the customer on things, on predict issues they're going to face, predict their expenses, alert them on something, right? As a bank, we are not reached there. We are still somewhere here where we are trying to not only service the customer, also onboard new customers and try to also sell them. Well, because then we have a ROI, we have a finally cost benefit analysis, and I can use that to further fund more innovations and more projects in chatbot. I tell you, like these are the examples I put. When people come to know these examples are very difficult to do on a web page or maybe on a mobile app, right? And customers typically ask these kind of questions. We need to find how do we answer those questions to customer when they ask in their own language. And still I have written very nicely written sentences. We have seen people don't use grammatically correct English, they'll write phrases, they'll use English. So that's why India is more complicated to say how do I learn the customer's intent and then give answer to the customer. Some of the example where customer types what they want to do it, and then either we give answers to customer, but we also added related questions or CTAs, or feedback loop, so that not only customer gets the answer, maybe they may get next answer which I am predicting what customer might have asked. Plus we also take customer feedback. So if I'm not able to answer the customer's question and he or she gives me the insight, same day our teachers who learn it and then teach back to the chatbot and say next time if same question asked by some other customer, how can we smartly answer that question. Now technically, if you see, a chatbot can do multiple things. Okay? It can help you to search and discover features on your website or on your mobile app. It can help you to handle complaint management or customer grievance redressal. If customer has a fraud issue and contact center is difficult to reach or there's too much of queue there, then how can I do fraud reporting? A lot of people have FAQs and queries related to products, charges, turnaround time. Okay, we have seen within the app, people sometimes get overwhelmed by so many features in the app. Like today, my mobile banking app will have around 180 to 200 features. Now, sometimes customers just get lost; they don't know where to find what. Right? We have seen a chatbot acts like a in-app search engine also, which redirect customers to the right feature within the app. And also, customer looks at the product related information. And normally, we divide a customer's request into 2 parts: non-financial transactions, like say just getting a statement or request for checkbook, and also financial transactions like IMPS, NEFT, UPI, mutual fund transactions. That is, we say, the journey. Almost every bank has to see. If I don't do all those things, customer will not find a Kia one-stop solution. And they will start to see it is patchy, it is not solving all problems. So slowly they may not be as happy as I want them to do. And what we also seen, as I told earlier, banking will always be omni-channel / multi-channel. The customer is not going to use only one channel always. What we also did it, the same Kia NLP layer has been used in all the 4 channels. If you go to Kotak.com website, or even go to Kotak's WhatsApp handle or net banking and mobile banking app, and you click on a Kia, the same NLP AI engine is powering in all the 4 places. You get a seamless experience in all the places. And tomorrow, if I learn some failure in mobile banking app and I teach my AI engine again, all 4 channels learn it, and next day they become smarter in front of the next customer. So I'll tell you quickly what are the learnings for us from there. The learnings could be, when you start like any digital company, you don't try to go broad. We have always focused, pick up a few areas and go deep into that. And that's the classic way any fintech, any startup will do. Like when WhatsApp started, they only focus on the chat, right? where they said people are using SMS, or they're using BlackBerry Messenger. How could I do a damn good job of making customer do all texting on WhatsApp, right? And later they picked up other areas, right? Similar way, we chose one or two products first, go deeper into that, and when customer likes that, we try to add more features there. Okay. We picked up the Pareto approach and picked up the top 20% cases, which is 80% of the volume, so that at least those things get solved. We realize customer appreciate here when we upfront tell him that it's a beta program or we are still learning and sorry, I'm not able to answer it. We have seen customers are fine with that. However, we take a fallback option. If my chatbot is not able to answer customer, if I say sorry, I can do something, go to the branch, then it is not going to be a very happy approach for customer. I should have a fallback option where I should try to give customer some other digital way of getting the same answer, which will be chatbot failed to do. And also continuous monitoring and retraining. Every day we see certain amount of questions which our chatbot is not able to answer. And we have a dedicated team of people who look at those failures, look at the right answers, feed it back into AI engine so that next day it becomes smarter. I'll try to very quickly go through the points which are written here. First is, don't try to tell customer that it is a perfect system and it is solving all problems right now. Okay. Tell very clearly customer what can do, what it cannot do. Build your UX and UI in such a way that it reduces the scope of failures. Second, I told you, like, the whole human computer interaction science has been built around a GUI and a form with a submit button kind of thing. Chatting with banking is not very easy from UX perspective. You need to evolve here, find a new way of making customer comfortable with chat for, say, a banking transaction. What interestingly we also saw, customers always treat our chatbot more as a human. We see the majority of customers start the chatbot system with hello madam, good morning ma'am, and the end with thank you. What we are seeing is people treat, though we communicate to customer, it's a bot, it's not a human. Somewhere customers still relate to that icon and treat like a human. So we need to, our language also be such that we should try to be as human as possible. However, reiterate to customers saying that finally it's a bot, so don't expect the human level intelligence from a chatbot on this part. And as I told you, the human need to support the AI. Right? So far, the AI has not become so good that it can replace the humans totally, especially in the banking area. So we need to give a backup option to customer that maybe you can, if your chatbot is not able to answer, you can do live chat with human agent, or we'll connect to the contact center agent. You can talk to the person over the phone, right? Those things are important to build as a practice. Plus, sorry. And as I told you earlier, we need to keep on working on AI. And when we build it, we use a Singapore-based fintech engine. What we realize that a build for a nice and proper English, which people use in other places of Europe and Asia. But in India, the English is very, very broken. And most of the time, people don't write a proper English. They write phrases. Nobody write, I want to book a fixed deposit today. They will write fixed deposit or FD. So typically, it becomes a non-interrogative question. Typically, any NLP AI typically works best when it's an interrogative questions, where it is nicely written with starting with the what and ending with a question mark. But we have to keep on changing our AI engine, and it's still journey. We are still not perfected it, but we still keep on improving it. Use of English is also very, very common by customers. So, and building a AI is not very easy, but we have cracked it. We have built some journeys which we are able to understand customers' English also and give answer back. And the way I realize it's just about data. The more questions you feed into AI, the more it becomes smarter and intelligent, and the data comes. However, ensure there is no garbage feed into it. Once you feed a garbage data, just to make it more comprehensive, we think the AI goes for toss, and then very difficult to retrain the bot and or unlearn the wrong thing which it is learned. The challenges for us, I think it is still evolving space. A lot of technology is changing every time. So how do I go to next level becomes always an issue. Investment as a banker, as a commercial organization, we have to always give back the return on investment to our shareholders. So I can't have upfront huge money put where I don't give returns back, right? So as a bank, we have to always do smart investment, a frugal experiment, and see what's working, what is not working. That's all at my end. Thanks, and happy to take any questions which are there from you.
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting that how important human interactions are, and that is why probably the customers of the banking sector appreciate talking to a banking representative or a banker, and if not a person, that can be replaced with AI. And thank you for giving us an insight into the KR chatbot and for highlighting the journey of AI in India. So thank you so much. So we have one question which our student had put, and we are glad that you've already answered it. He was asking about the challenges that AI face in India. And there is one more which we will quickly take. The question is, with the entry of new umbrella entity, the digital platform, which will be for profit and shall be allowed to charge fees for online transactions, will there be any kind of competition between the non-profit UPI and the for-profit new umbrella entity?
See, when non-profit UPI is not an entity, right? NPCI is an entity. Right now, they are running UPI in India. Of course, when any other entity comes, they will also use UPI. The UPI is more a rail or backend system which is built by NPCI. And yes, the NPCI is built from that angle. It's a non-profit and building thing in India. So we feel why government is building a new NUE, because we think now next decade will be more on innovation. I think India has already done a great job on building the whole stack. We feel the India stack is ready now with the Jan Dhan and UPI and Aadhaar, now Sahmati, the consent layer is also coming in, right? We think the stack has been built. Now I think with these new entities, we see there will be huge, they will create new digital payment rails, and with that we'll have to innovate a lot. And I think when somebody innovates, there's a clear value for the banks and the customers. I think they will be happy to pay for it, right? So I think that's what will start to come, because without the payment policy, there's no viable business model, right? And unless entrepreneurs comes in the market, the things will not go to next level. For example, when the UPI was launched, the BHIM app, which was launched by NPCI, was the biggest app for first 1 or 2 years, right? But later, banks started to make their app much better and smarter. Then Paytm app came, and PhonePe came, then Google Pay came. Now WhatsApp is also into it, right? The amount of number in India is huge, right? That's what I think the private sector can do when they come to some of these areas. We feel the new NUE will help there to build new use cases and there build a profitable thing so that they can feed into it. Second, what I feel is it will de-risk. Because today the NPCI is maybe becoming a huge systematic risk and concentration risk. Okay? For whatever reason, mostly it will not happen. But in case NPCI, suppose there's some issue, the system failures or whatever happens, right? I think that risk, it will get I'll say de-risk by having a multiple entities and those pipes will be available in India, right? So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, sir, for answering the queries of our participants, and thank you for taking out time out of your busy schedule. Thank you so much, sir. Next, we have with us our final resource person, Mr. Mahindra Dohari, General Manager, Digital Banking Division, Punjab National Bank Corporate Office. Sir has over 22 years of experience in banking, comprising of banking operations, asset and liability products, retail and corporate credits, delivery channels, business development, financial inclusion, marketing intelligence, general insurance, and customer service. Prior to this present assignment, Sir worked as General Manager IT, Management Information System, and Digital Banking with United Bank of India, and held several important positions at Union Bank of India and Corporation Bank. Sir is an MSc and MBA from Kanpur University, and he also has the CAIIB certification in digital banking, IT security, prevention of cyber crimes and fraud management, certified information system banker, customer services and banking codes, and MSME finance. Sir has nearly 15 years of field experience and has worked as circle head in Tripura Circle, Chandigarh Circle, Hooghly Circle, and Purulia Circle. So we are fortunate to have you with us today, and I request you to kindly address our participants.
Thanks, Lopaji. So first of all, I compliment BGU for this first conclave. My compliments to Dean Mr. Maharana ji and Dr. Mohanty also for giving me an opportunity to participate in this conclave. So I heard in the afternoon session also, and lot of issues and lot of these technologies have been discussed. And my friend like Mr. Manas and Mr. Manish has shared a lot of inputs on digitalization, particularly with respect to mobile banking. So no doubt, mobile banking has to be one of the greatest apps for all the banks, which will decide the bank fortune with respect to customer engagements. But there are some issues in the sense, particularly I will talk about this ecosystem in our country. This when we talk about mobile banking, definitely it rests on the smartphone, but actually there are a lot of population which uses feature phone. So their innovation needs to come up. When we talk about mobile banking, for example, we have a mobile bank in PNB which we call PNB One. You name any services, it is there. You can open fixed deposits, you can request for loans, you can transfer money, you can do all your card transactions on off. You can add beneficiaries, you can do a lot of transactions there. So ultimately the course we decide is that how you keep your customer engaged on the mobile banking apps, as well as internet banking also. As we discussed, like UPI is one of the app which has become very prominent, and COVID has given fillip to this digitalization and this digital transaction, particularly on the UPI. The challenge is there is the ecosystem in our country. By ecosystem I mean, like when we talk about this, we have just discussed about NUE, new umbrella entity. So we have only one entity, NPCI, right now, which is doing well, but there need to be some more innovations on the retail payment segments. So definitely we need a new umbrella entity which can do some disruption and bring some innovations to the retail payment systems. Similarly, at the rural or semi-urban level, we do not have much deeper penetration of digitalization because of the fear psychosis, because of the different issues, and the major issue is lack of customer awareness because of the frauds, because of the cyber security issues. Though a lot of DBTs are taken care through Aadhaar enabled payment system, through PFMS, through various channels, but the customer awareness in the rural segment, particularly in the northeastern state, is one of the major challenge. But from the regulator point of view, like NUE is one of the initiatives. Similarly, PIDF, if I talk, Payment Infrastructure Development Fund, which is created by RBI to push the installation of POS and QR code in the economy, particularly in the rural and the northeastern sector, that will also give fillip to the digital payment ecosystem. When we talk about this digital payment ecosystem, the two things I would like to mention here. The first one is the exponential technologies, and another is embedded banking. These two segments are going to decide the future of digitalization of, particularly in the banking sector. When we talk about this exponential technologies, which we have already discussed by the many speakers, like AI, open banking, or API, or robotic process automation, we all are using, but not to a very high level. When we talk about robotic process automation, we are utilizing these for the reconciliation. We are utilizing this for customer advisory, but not to a very sophisticated level, because the data analytics has to evolve to a greater extent in our country. We have though we have beginning has been made, we are using data lake, we are using metadata, and this big data have now has been started utilizing by the banks and the fintechs, but still lot of to be done. The another important challenge is the collaboration. Now, banks cannot do lot of innovations on their softwares because it will expose to many of the risk. they have to go for the collaboration with the fintech companies, and they have started also, like we have started digital lending, we have started video KYC, online account opening for the customers. But these kind of collaboration will help not only to the banks but also to the fintech companies to grow and to serve the customers. There are challenges, like there may be issues, like when we are going to a full digitalization in many of the segments, except still there is a, I mean, it needs to be developed from the point of corporates, for the corporate customers, for the corporate credit customers. Still there is a, I mean, gap with respect to, I mean, fintech companies yet to make a inroad there. But when we talk about fintechs or the neo banks, lot of fintechs and the neo bank has come up, which are tying up with the banks and offering a newer kind of services, offering a new kind of products where lot of scope is there. Because when we go for this kind of digitalization, what we are witnessing is the cost of servicing the customer is getting minimized. Lot of revenue generation benefits are automatically getting to the banks. For example, when the customer goes to the branch, we incur per customer, we incur the cost of around rupees 59. But when he utilizes my channel on the internet or the mobile banking, it is approx around 4 to 5 rupees. If he goes to the ATM, we are just the cost to the bank is around 14 to 15 rupees, depends on the average number of hits, if it is more than 130. Similarly, when we tie up with the fintechs and the services like digital lending is offered, my cost, not only my cost is getting minimized, the kind of experience the customer gets, because not only he is getting the experience of seamless delivery, I'm also getting benefit, because I need not to do use a different app for taking his CIR from the Sibyl Highmark or these kind of companies, or I need not to go to the GST to get the customers GST invoices or his IT returns or his PAN or Aadhaar. All is collated at one place under digital lending, and it's a win-win situation for the bank and for the customers. So these kind of products innovation has to be come up more for the customer benefit and for the bank also. But the challenge is, another challenge is the cyber security, the security to the customers. We are witnessing a lot of frauds in the market, on the channel also, and on the cards also, and in the fintech scenario also, fintech space also. There the gaps need to be plugged. When we talk about these frauds, the basic frauds which we are witnessing on the digital channels particularly, because the major factor there is the sharing of passwords, sharing of OTP by the customer himself. That is one of the challenge, just because of the lack of awareness. This awareness level has to be increased at all levels. Though a lot of initiative has been taken by the bank, even RBI also, at all levels, and the customer getting used to it. RBI is also very tough on this front. They have come up with complaints with the zero tolerance norms, and they have come out with new circular also. If the complaints are increased, then they will take action, and the penalty will also levied on the banks. So this is very important, that the frauds are plugged in on mobile banking products and service platforms. Similarly, when we talk about different account aggregators, or there also or e-commerce platform, lot of data is shared by the customers. Card data, their passwords are shared, and a lot of data is siphoned from there. There is also a challenge. So these gaps has to be, I mean, though RBI has taken some of the steps, and they have decided that they have in fact came out with the directives on the payment security controls, that these data on the account aggregators or the e-commerce with respect to cards should not be stored from July. So if this is going to happen, though there is a lot of hue and cry, if this is going to happen, this will create some disruption, some service, many service level issues for the customers also and for these companies also. All these is happening because of the developments of the or the disruption in the services or disruption in the new technologies. These disruption has to come because ultimately it is going to benefit to the customers and the ecosystem. This ecosystem, it is not only the regulator has to work out, even the state government has to do, like digitalization of the land records, digitization of the mortgages, so that when we talk about digital lending or when we talk about the customer service, so there is a seamless connect between all these channels, all these departments, so that customer delivery is very, very efficient. So this is one point. And at the same time, there may be, issues, like somebody may say, when we are going for a digitalization, is there would be a challenge with respect to customer relationship. Definitely that there will be challenge, but the dimension will be different. When we talk about digitalization, it's not that we don't build relationship with the customer. We build relationship with the customers, we by a different dimension, by engaging them to our channels, by giving them the loyalty rewards based on their transaction data. Based on their transaction data, they get the rewards, they get the different kind of SMS push. Suppose a customer is very travel freaky, then we devise a product and offer them travel loans. So like this, they kept or engaged with the bank. So that brings the relationship more stronger. But at the same time, when we talk about relationship banking, there is a segment of customers, particularly if I say senior citizens or pensioner, they like to visit to the branch, and they are generally averse to the digital channels. So those kind of relationship will certainly keep on existing in the system. And the another important point is, this digitalization is particularly driven by or being driven by millennials and Gen Z customers, and they are not very loyal to the banks or the companies. Wherever they find good or wherever they find new, they try and they go for it. So that is in fact a kind of opportunity for the banks, for the financial sector, and that is the major reason the companies like Amazon, Flipkart, or the fintechs are growing. So this is a market demand, this is the market requirement, this is a customer requirement, and definitely the market in this ecosystem, market banks, they will be benefited, and the whole ecosystem will be developed. And sooner or later, we will see uh, the new kind of I mean concept, like maybe there we will not have the requirement of even accounts, or there may be interoperability of wallets or interoperability of accounts. We have already have digi lockers. We customer need not to give his KYC details again and again. Only digi locker or the reference number will be enough. So these kind of concepts are already in the pipeline, and certainly we will see lot of changes and the developments in the digital space. So this is from my side. Thank you. If any questions are there, I'll be happy to share my views.
Sure, sir. So, thank you so much for pointing out the importance of collaboration. Of course, innovation is necessary, but no innovation will be possible without collaboration. And like you said, the choices of Generation Z or millennials, as we call them, they are constantly changing, and they need something new every time. So that is why banks do have to come up with new digital products. Thank you so much, sir. So we have a few questions from our participants. We'll take a question. Sir, there's this question that whether offering more number of digital products and services by commercial banks in any way will affect the customer relationship management at branch level, where the banking executives or the branch managers would still prefer to meet the customers face to face in connection with banking business.
No, it is not going to affect the relationship, because what we have witnessed, like in the COVID scenario, the customers who were not very fluent with the digital channels, They were forced to accept these channels, and now they are happy to use these channels. And when the customer is happy with the channels, not only saving time and money, and with respect to relationship, particularly for a branch manager, relationship is very important in the sense when he's doing the lending, he has to go for the monitoring also, he has to visit the for recovery also. So these relationship will continue, but the dimension of relationship will change. On the digital channels also, we take feedback from the customers. There are calls to the customer from our call centers to offer different products, to take to advise them, to to sell them third party products like mutual fund, insurance. So these relationship will continue, but in a different dimension. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So there's just one more question that throughout the day today we have had a lot of discussions, and we know that customers sometimes fear that their identity might not be stolen. Talking about information security and talking about fraudulent payments being made from their accounts. So with the present development in the digital banking products and services, has it become difficult to retain customers?
It is difficult in the sense, though it is a very important issue which we are also witnessing. Suppose in a rural village, if a customer loses the money by fraud, all the other rural folks will not use that channel, or the message will spread like a wildfire, and everybody will stop using the for say like mobile banking. So definitely this is a challenge. But what is generally what we do, if we offer, when the customer is offered any channel like mobile banking, we have to make them use how to use this channel and what are the security measures and how to avoid the frauds. Do not respond to unwarranted calls, do not take the numbers from the search engines where the lot of fake numbers are put up. Do not use other channels for transactions, or do not use the links for the transactions. Do not open unwarranted emails also. So this kind of awareness has to spread, and that's why this financial awareness or financial inclusion, under financial inclusion, this financial awareness is a very important aspect, which is RBI agenda also. And in fact, in the particularly in the rural branches, is compulsory to hold 2 rural financial inclusion awareness camp by every branch for the customer awareness. But definitely this is a challenge because of the a lot of frauds are happening in the market.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we've come to an end of our second panel discussion, and I would request our Dean, Birla School of Commerce, to kindly give the closing remarks.
Yeah, before I give my concluding remark, I find Dr. Sarada Mahanti has a question to Mr. Dore.
Yes, please. I'll be very happy.
Sir, we are unable to hear you. Mahanti, sir, we are unable to hear you. No, sir. We are unable to hear you.
Sir, your voice is not.
Any problem from our side, Lopa?
No, sir. Someone has muted him. Panditji, can you please check? No, sir. He's on unmute. He can speak, but we cannot hear him.
There is some technical issues. Okay.
Or he can write in the chat box.
Yeah, sir, we can do that.
Okay. I have a brief remark on the deliberation which you had throughout the day. I'm so happy that we have three resource persons from three different areas. Dr. Manas Panda is basically a consultant, and we have Mr. Manish Shah. He is a very top level banker from a high tech private bank, and Sri Dohore, he's a top level banker of a public sector, well established public sector banks, and they have shared their expertise. I would like to say that entire the digital technology has transformed the financial ecosystem in our country. And India, just like many other developing country, we have a bank dominated economy. Each and everybody is concerned directly or indirectly, and some amount of banking is there in our life, individual, institution, and the government. So whenever there is a technological transformation in the entire banking business, we are all affected. The government try to control it. We have regulatory bodies like Reserve Bank of India, the Ministry of Company Affairs, Ministry of Finance. They take care of that. As a layman, we have to learn. We have to improve our skill, because ultimately, as a customer, I want a good service, maybe fast service, local service, and alternatives. Lot of alternatives. I want that from the bank, even though nowadays we don't like to go to a bank. But even the branch manager, as you said rightly, occasionally he would like to talk to you. In fact, I still remember uh, the branch manager in the State Bank of India, where I have an account. Occasionally she says, "Sir, I have not seen you for a long time. Sir, why don't you come down for a cup of tea?" So there is still a need for customer relationship between the banker and the customer. Probably digitalization, as Mr. Dora has rightly pointed out, there is a different way of maintaining the relationship between the customers. Customer is important for a banker. And when you go for a lot of changes in technology, we heard about the artificial intelligence, how they are also taking care of human beings. They are responding to your questions. They're all interactive in nature. But there is a very important question whether we are changing the technology very fast, which is also difficult to cope up with the bank employees, because many of the bankers I have seen at a basically senior level, they feel that these are all the jobs of the high tech and the millennials, the young bank officer. They are more capable of taking care of it. So entire not only the IT department, there are need a transformation and skill upgradation of the entire banking sector, just like there is a need at the level of the customers or other stakeholders of the commercial bank. And one more thing that I sometimes believe, that the technology is becoming very costly. We know that the fintech companies, they have a collaboration and no competition with the commercial bank. But in days to come, they will be encroaching into some of the territory of the commercial bank. They have encroached. And if there is a collaboration, this will be win-win situation for both of them, because banks, the development technology is not the forte of the commercial bank. They are good in their dharma is accepting deposit, giving loans, and they are doing many other things. But technology development is not the forte of a commercial bank. So if the technology is developed by the financial technology company like fintechs, and the bank make use it, and fintech also need customers information, etc., etc., so that collaboration will ultimately be beneficial for all of us. But the question arises, technology is becoming very costly, and technology is changing very fast. The rate of obsolescence is very fast. If a banker is using a technology spending hundreds of crores, and then we find the technology changing, then probably the recoupment period is very short. Many times, it's my personal opinion, I am not a banker, that is it possible that bankers are losing because ultimately the cost will be passed on to the customers, or the bottom line of the bank will get adversely affected if the bank does not get enough time to recoup the cost of the technology. Of course, we have no choice. If others are changing, if the technology changing throughout the globe, the banks will have to fall in line. Otherwise, they will not be competitive in the years to come. Thank you very much, sir. I thank Dr. Panda. Dr. Panda, in fact, I wrote him a mail that this may not be a very convenient time for him, but he said, sir, I will join in time, and he has been here. Uh, Mr. Saha, sir, you are always very busy person. And Mr. Dora, both of you are occupying top position, but I'm so happy and so grateful to you that you could spare some of your valuable time today when we have a very difficult time outside, but you have given your time because thanks to the technology, because of the technology, we are able to meet here. And I find Panda after a long time, maybe after 20 years. I taught him for 2 years in the university, and then after 20 years, I am able to see him. Thank you very much. It has been a learning lesson for all of us, for me, for my faculty colleagues, for the students, and all those participants. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, sir.
The question is there, Lopa.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That
Sir,
Sarada question is there.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, though closing remarks mark the end of a program, but we are bound to take a question from our conclave advisor. He's posted a question which says that when a customer suffers from cyber fraud, how long does it take for your bank to solve the issue? This question is not just for Duhare, sir. It is for all our panelists.
So generally, I have written a comment there. So I would like to just say a few words on this. Generally, this with respect to responding to customer-related frauds, there are RBI guidelines through which on which we have to work out. So particularly, as soon as the fraud is reported, generally it is to be reported within the 3 days, and immediately the shadow credit is given to the customer account. And then the investigation is commenced by the fraud risk management system of department of the bank. And based on the findings, if the customer is not at the fault, where he has not shared his credentials, so it depends whether the customer is at the fault or not at the fault. So after investigation, the decision is taken by the fraud risk management cell, and based on that, the case is closed. So generally, it is very difficult to say how much time it takes to close a fraud. It depends on the nature of the fraud. But generally, I can say within 30 days, most of the cases are closed.
I would like to ask the same question to Mr. Shah.
Yeah, I think Mr. Mahindra has given what is the standard which RBI has put for us. The way we also see it is you have to look from customer angle, two things. The moment typically customer comes to know about the fraud when the account is debited, right? And he gets an SMS or email, typically. That's the most common way where he comes to know. Otherwise, sometimes they get a passbook or they come to the branch and they're doing the data, then they come to know. One thing we've done is we have made it very easy for customers to report the fraud also. It's important for us, let customer it's like filing the first information report, right? We enabled it easily a customer for almost all channels, whether on a website, in a mobile app or net banking or on a contact center also. First thing we try to do it is how make it easy for customer to approach us. And the first thing we do it is how can we reduce the losses. We immediately, basis customer's consent and customer's report, we block the customer's channel. So at least the further leakage cannot happen. And then we immediately block the channels. Then within 48 hours, we look at it, where the gap was there, what a vulnerability. And basically that we again reopen the channel for the customer so that they can start doing their basic banking operations. And then as Mr. Mahindra said, it's a case to case. Clearly, there's no issue by the customer, it has something at the mistake at our end or some third party. Then definitely we decide in the favor of customer and give the money back to the customer. But it takes something we have seen in 48 hours or 36 hours also we resolve it. But it sometimes take a couple of weeks also to resolve the issue because of the complication involved into it. First thing we try to do it is recover the money. If the money has gone to someone, typically money has gone to another bank. We all as a close committee work with all other banks and we see if they can block the money. So the money is still safe. And then the money comes back to our account and give back to customer. Sometimes those coordinations do take time.
Thank you, sir. I hope Dr. Mohanty is satisfied with both the answers. Thank you so much, sir. Before we move towards the end of our program, I would request all our panelists to kindly switch on their videos so that we can take a group screenshot.
Sure.
Neha,
Neha madam, Vijay sir,
our registrars are
registrar
also.
sir.
Lopa, are you doing
Yes.
the need?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Last part. Okay.
Okay. So as we have come to an end of our one-day full BGU Bankers Conclave 2021, I would request Professor Dr. Hemant Banawat to kindly propose the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, sir, for beautifully summarizing the deliberation. And finally, we have come to an end of a very meaningful and constructive discussion in the first edition of BGU's Banker Conclave. I, Dr. Hemant Banawat, on behalf of Birla School of Commerce, Birla Global University, would like to thank our distinguished speakers of the panel discussion, Dr. Manas Panda, Mr. Manish Shah, and Mr. Mahendra Dubale, for the excellent deliberation and for making the panel discussion so interesting and meaningful. Sir, I am sure your deliberations have motivated the diversified participants from all over the globe. Thank you very much, sir. I would also like to express my gratitude to our Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Mathur, for giving us this opportunity to organize first of its kind conclave in the entire eastern region of India. Thank you, sir. My heartfelt thanks to our Registrar, Sir, Professor Das, for his support and guidance and for sharing his views on the topic. Also, the Banker Conclave would not have been possible without the constant motivation of our Dean, Professor Sampson, sir. I would like to thank you once again, sir. And at the last, I would like to thank Dr. S.P. Mohanty, General Manager, RBI. He is an advisor to the conclave for his invaluable help in managing and organizing this Banker Conclave. Thank you very much, sir. I would also like to thank my faculty colleagues, especially Professor Lopamudra Madam, for their hard work and continued support in successfully organizing this conclave. I would like to thank Mr. S.N. Mishra, General Manager Administration, and Mr. K.M. Pandey for their logistic support. And last but not the least, I once again thank all the participants for attending the panel discussion. Thank you very much. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mahendra sir. Thank you, Mr. Saha.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Manas,
Bye-bye. Thank you, sir.
See you
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. I hope
Sir,
I will get your cooperation in future also in organizing other seminar or conferences. Yeah.
Sir, I'll be there always.
Thank you. Thank you.